What is up, everyone? Anyone feel like we're getting a nation army built back? Another war in the Middle East? Woo! Let's do it, right? Welcome to Normal America Show. I'm your host, robnoerr. I've been off for a week. My engine feels refueled. I'm good to go. I've been busy. Oh, someone finally got that little whiny bitch ogre a subscription. Thank God. Can we go a month without hearing him complain about the ads? Wouldn't that be great? Happy to be here with you all. Really excited. Sorry, it's a unadvertised midday stream. I'm a busy man. What can I say? Probably soon to get much busier. I'm in the works behind the scene and maybe doing something stupid that's going to cost me tens of thousands of dollars that I don't have. But maybe I'll do it. We'll see what's up. We'll talk about it a little on the show today. Now, you may be asking, where has Rob been? Why is he doing this early stream? And for God's sakes, why is he drinking a delicious Moosehead lager in the middle of the day? See, alcoholic Rob is a thing of the past, majoritarily speaking. I have my moments, but I maybe drink once or twice a year. And I almost never drink casually. I'm not the type of person that has like a beer at dinner or something. But I thought today was a somber and special occasion. You may be wondering what's going on based on the title of my video here today. Excuse me, a little heartburn from the beer here that I probably shouldn't be drinking. So Hamas, we get Biden, Jim Jordan, you get all that. What's Elvira? What's Elvira? You mean, you know, the hit, who sang that, the Oak Ridge Boys song? Elvira, my heart's on fire, Elvira. Catchy song, but no, that's not what we're talking about. Or what was it, the Queen of the Night? Remember she used to have that, like the TV show that would show classic horror movies. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I actually have bad news. So since the birth of my son, Hank, who's a little over 2.5 years old, his birthday is on January 9th. He'll be 3 years old. We have not had any deaths in my family. Mistress of the Dark, that was it. I didn't get the exact title. We didn't have any deaths in my family. By that I mean, obviously, humans, but also no pets. And unfortunately, we had our first death in the family, a pet. Our guinea pig, Elvira, passed away, which is a bummer. Elvira was a good girl. We got Elvira and her sister Fig 5-6 months ago. Maybe not even that long ago. Elvira was fine. I went to work Sunday. My wife got up at 5:30 in the morning Wednesday because she was babysitting, and it was going to be an early babysitting of a toddler that she watches sometimes. And she went to feed the guinea pigs early, and Fig was fine, but Elvira, unfortunately, had passed. So for Elvira, I'll crack a beer today. She was a good guinea pig. Her sister Fig, it definitely was the heavier eater of the two. Fig's more bold. Elvira was more skittish, but she was a good pig. And it was weird. It was the first I've talked to my son. He clearly doesn't understand something like that, like death. But I talked to him because he likes Elvira and Fig, and he wondered where Elvira went. So we buried her. She's the first pet buried here where I live in our house that we bought here. So I want to get her some nice flowers or something nice to put up. But it's sad. It really is. Elvira's a good pig. And she will be missed. So for Elvira, the show is dedicated to Elvira today. Rest in peace, Elvira. I'm drinking a delicious Moosehead lager. I like to think that if Elvira was a beer drinker, she would have chose Moosehead. So no Bud Light. We know that, right? Yeah, guinea pigs are amazing animals. They're really cool. We have 2 dogs, and unfortunately the one's getting up there. She's 13, and I could see her health fading. It'll be really sad. Her name's Annabelle. I'll get Annabelle and Dorothy. They've been on camera before, but I'll get them on camera here one of these days soon. Annabelle, she's an old timer. Me and Courtney got her like the first year we started dating, really. So she's been with us the whole time. So it'll be really upsetting when she goes. But yeah, today's show's for Elvira. Now this is going to be my favorite type of show is debating. I love debating. That's my favorite thing to do on these shows. This is right up there, though, because this is going to be a stream of conscience show. So if you're looking for some well thought out, articulated points with videos that I'm going to reference and things like that, this is not going to be the show for you. This is going to be basically probably a 2-hour rant. I'll be ending around 4:30. We do have some stuff to do this evening. Got some pumpkin carving going on later tonight, so that'll be exciting. And then tomorrow, we were going to go to a pumpkin patch, but it looks like it's going to be rain. And we went to this same pumpkin patch before Hank was born one time while it was raining, and it was a muddy mess. So if it rains tomorrow, we'll come up with something different to do. Real briefly, I'll tell you all where I've been. I'll try to make this as short as possible so we can get on with the show. Last you saw me was last Friday, so 7 days ago. I did a stream with John Burke in the middle of the day. Thought the stream went well. Doing home health care because it is partially financed by the state and because it has to do with health care. The state has regulations and things like that, and they do routine audits. This week here was our company's audit by the state, and so it was insanely busy. And I don't mean to brag. I think I'm really good at my job, particularly when it comes to working with the people with developmental disabilities. I work with one person in particular who's basically feels like a member of my family. I've been with him for 11 years. But also I'm pretty good at understanding the regulations and making sure that sort of all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted and things like that. And so I'm often a person that is called upon, at least in our house, when it comes to making sure that we're ready for an audit, that all the paperwork's done, that the house is totally cleaned as it should be, that the water temperatures are appropriate, that, all of our, we have outlet covers over outlets, that all of your sharps and things like that are stored in proper ways. There is a ton of regulations, an absolute ton of regulations. And so it has been an absolute brutal week for me as far as having no downtime, none at all. In fact, I've worked every day this week. Today, finally, I feel like some pressure's off. I believe the audit's over. So we'll wait and we'll see the results. I'm confident that everything I did was A-okay. They might find a little knock here or there, but I think overarchingly we do pretty good. So I could get back to normal. So I do apologize. I did kind of forewarn people that it was going to be a busy week for me. So I apologize. We'll talk a little about Pisco and the rest of the stupid left that I debate and stuff like that. So, but that's where I was. So if you're wondering where I was, everything was fine. It wasn't like there's work days that are difficult days because it's like there's an illness with someone you care about, one of the clients that you take care of, or, there's an incident that's, troubling or something like that. Those are difficult emotionally work days, and they could also be physically difficult. This wasn't that. This wasn't like I was emotionally stressed. It literally was just a lot of busy work. So it's not like I was in a bad mood or that I was upset or anything like that. It just literally was time consuming, getting a lot of stuff done. Now, one thing that I did, and I plan on doing this in the future, I was inspired by Scott Presler. Scott Presler, I believe, is the best person representing the organization of the Republican Party and the GOP that is going. If you don't know Scott Presler, check out his Twitter channel. It is @ThePersistence. Or you could just type in Scott Presler to X or to Twitter and you'll see him come up. He started a few years ago. I started to recognize him. He was doing things like taking right-wing people into inner city neighborhoods that traditionally vote left-wing and was doing things that were really simple, like cleaning up garbage, cleaning up like 6 city blocks and things like that. Volunteers to help communities that weren't necessarily conservative. I believe he is exactly what me and every other person that's on here streaming should be. He is putting his money where his mouth is. He is doing the difficult on-the-ground work that actually will make a change. He will have more effect than me doing 100 hours of streaming in one day of registering people to vote or cleaning up a community. Because the truth is, and I'll fully acknowledge this, I fully will, that's the type of unglamorous stuff that's like, it doesn't get you in the headlines. If you go with Scott Presler tomorrow and you help clean up a neighborhood, no one's going to know your name. The only reason they know Scott's name is because he's done it for so many years and he's been so good at it. But the average person that volunteers for him, you're not going to get accolades. Ronna McDaniel from the GOP is not going to call you and go, you know what, great job. Let's offer you a spot in the GOP. They're not going to do that. Ronna McDaniel won't even take Scott Presler's calls. So he's in Pennsylvania. I would have loved to have met up with him, but unfortunately it's a very busy time for me, as I'd already stated. But he's in Pennsylvania, and one of the things he's highlighting, which I knew this, but again, I'm so focused on these bigger, like these national level stories, and I'm so frustrated with the GOP in Pennsylvania that I lose sight of stuff that I hear about more state and local level politics that I should be talking to you all about. So there is an election coming up here in Pennsylvania in November, and one of the votes will be for Pennsylvania Supreme Court. If Republicans lose that, the Democrats will have control of the Supreme Court until at least 2035. So Scott Presler is focused on getting people to register or vote as Republican and getting them to turn out to vote for Judge Carolyn Carlucci, who is the Republican nominee for that Supreme Court position. He was asking for people to mail postcards, in particular to people that were Republicans that moved into the state of Pennsylvania, encouraging them to register to vote as Republicans in Pennsylvania and to get out there and vote. I believe November 7th is election day, and make sure you vote for Judge Carolyn Carlucci. So I was able to mail out 20 cards encouraging people to do that. That was all put together by Scott Presler. If you all would be interested, you do not have to be from the state of Pennsylvania. His focus now is getting people registered to vote in Allegheny County. That's out towards Pittsburgh, getting them to register as Republicans. He is looking for people. It's very simple. You go to his Twitter feed, and we'll look at that maybe here later before I go off. You go to his Twitter feed. There's a link you could follow. You give your email. He'll send you a template. He wants you to handwrite it so it's authentic. And he gives you a template of exactly what to write and the names and addresses of people to send either a postcard or a mailed letter to people. And I think it's a really good cause. I'm also going to be reaching out to Scott to see if there's more on the ground stuff I could do coming up for both this November election and then the big election in 2024. But I think that he is exactly right. And the fact, once more illustrating, the fact that the Republican Party's controlling apparatus, led by Ronna McDaniel, won't even pick up the phone and talk to Scott Presler shows you they're less concerned about winning and more concerned about keeping their consolidated power in with the establishment Republicans that currently run things. And that's exactly what's going on with this Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz situation as well. Remember, the entire reason that Kevin McCarthy got the boot was because he was unwilling to go back to sort of each committee putting their own budget out and then giving 12 votes on a budget out of the House instead of one big omnibus. And the reason for that, overwhelmingly, is Ukraine funding, because the money being sent to Ukraine is corrupt and it goes to kicking back to the very Republican and Democrats that vote for it, just like it has for years, just like it did with John Kerry's family, just like it did with the Biden family. This is the game. We give all this money to corrupt countries like Ukraine, who then somehow funnel it through the family members of these people. It's why all these Congress people, one of the reasons why all these Congress people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and yet they retire with hundreds of millions of dollars. They're doing something, right? And so the idea, it's not just Ukraine, but that's the big one, right? It's all this other funding. They know if it's a straight up or down vote from the entire budget, then they could get their specific pork projects in that benefit them or benefit their direct area. They don't really give a shit about this country. That's why inflation's never dealt with. That's why we'll continue to spend and spend and spend and spend and spend until it all collapses. But you don't care about the kids. The kids need milk. They need milk. You want to cut benefits from struggling mothers? That's so terrible. So you have to vote for Raytheon. You have to vote to send more money to these defense contractors. You have to. You have to vote to send more money to Ukraine. Or else you want to see kids starve to death and not have their milk. That's what's going on. Kevin McCarthy had to keep that going. Kevin McCarthy didn't do shit. Let me be quite clear. I don't even know if Kevin McCarthy is the worst guy in the world. Mike Cernovich seems to think he's an okay guy. Maybe he is. I don't give a shit. The truth is Kevin McCarthy either A, doesn't give a shit, or B, is someone that was feckless and couldn't do anything to the real people that control the Republican Party. They don't give a shit about you. They don't care. Mitch McConnell does not give a shit about you. But I live in Mitch McConnell's district, and I've been struggling, and he came to our local farm show. He doesn't give a shit about you. 90% of the people. And by the way, if you're watching and you're a Democrat and you're here to like laugh at the Republican Party or to make fun of me or whatever your reason might be, the Democrats don't give a shit about you either. They don't. They don't give a shit. They know how to say the right things. Democrats are better at staying cohesive. See, what you have to give Matt Gaetz and the people, the 8 people, him being one of them, that forced McCarthy out is this. At least they're trying something. At least they're willing to upset the apple cart. Bernie Sanders wasn't. AOC wasn't. Ilhan Omar wasn't. Rashida Tlaib wasn't. Oh, no. They'll be good little corporatist Dems when it comes right down to it at the end. They'll do exactly what they're told. And the Democratic Party is absolutely phenomenal at that. And it's just like when you look at all of these other, yes, it's absolutely true that both sides do it, people. It's absolutely true. The Republican Party at the establishment level is terrible. There is basically a uniparty at the top. The difference is the politicians in the Democratic Party, and more importantly, the vast majority, like 98% of their voters, of the Democrat voters, of the people on the left, they are good little establishment shills. They'll do whatever the establishment tells them to do because they say the right things. They'll support Nike and they'll support Chase Bank and all these other places as long as they say Black Lives Matter. That's all that matters. Cheap, cheap words. The few people in the Democratic Party that saw this and were trying to do things like force the vote for Medicare for all, by the way, a policy that I don't favor, but it's something that was being promised by the progressives in the Democratic Party, particularly these up-and-comers. Oh, we want Medicare for all. It was something that was being promised to these left-wing people over and over again. Yet they'll never get it. Why? Because they know, the politicians know, the establishment knows, all we have to do to appeal to 99% of these people is say cheap, cheap words. Now, the Republican Party, don't get me wrong, they try the same shit. Lindsey Graham will go on TV and go, I'm going to write another strongly worded letter about this targeting, treating Trump voters like terrorists. But nothing will get done. Nothing. Difference is, there is a groundswell of populist support in the Republican Party that says enough of this shit. Now, will that groundswell do anything meaningful? Remains to be seen. But at least there's people there that aren't buying into it. That's why when you see left-wingers like Glenn Greenwald or Aaron Mattei talk about things like people that are willing to challenge the orthodoxy of the establishment uniparty, particularly the issue that most stands out is their love for these foreign wars. The only groundswell of actual meaningful opposition that could actually translate into votes to elect people is from the right. It's from the Republicans. Almost lockstep, every Democratic politician, yep, fund Ukraine. Almost lockstep. The only party that has people, and still the leadership of the Republican Party, what's Kevin McCarthy doing? Wearing the Ukraine pin. What's Mitch McConnell doing? Most important thing we could do is fund Ukraine. They don't give a shit about you. They don't. So I talked to John Burke, and obviously it was a friendly conversation. We had slight disagreements, but we didn't go massively into our disagreements. Most of it was on Israel-Hamas. But I think an area of disagreement that John and I have is John seems to fall in this camp with Matt Gaetz, that Matt Gaetz, what he did was wrong because he didn't have a plan. And I see Steve Deese is talking about this. I see a bunch of other, particularly Ron DeSantis surrogates that you see in sort of the Twitter sphere and other places. They're talking like it. The problem with Matt Gaetz was he didn't have a plan. He was selfish. Now we're in this ridiculous spot. So I ask you this. What spot are we in? What's the ridiculous spot? Why are we in so much trouble now? How's your life meaningfully changed without a Republican Speaker of the House? Anyone? Go ahead. Tell me how your life's been worse this past month without a Republican Speaker of the House. What happened? Well, but Rob, now we have this problem with illegal immigration. Yeah, we had that with Kevin McCarthy. Okay. But what about the massive spending and inflation? Yeah, we had that with Kevin McCarthy. Okay. But without Kevin McCarthy there, we haven't been given the January 6 tapes that we were promised. Yeah, that's also what we had under Kevin McCarthy. Okay, but we haven't been given line item budgets, right? Like specific budgets from these committees. Yeah, that's what we had with Kevin McCarthy. Yeah, okay, but what about this, Rob? We haven't had the credible investigations into the Biden crime family, right? We haven't had subpoenas, for example, against Biden or against Hunter Biden. Yeah, that's exactly what we had under Kevin McCarthy. So what's changed? Oh, it's embarrassing. The Republicans are embarrassed. You can go to I'm Really Important stream today, and he's covering like the 12th day of, oh man, Republicans look embarrassing in the House. Look how embarrassing it is. I don't give a shit. Good. They should be embarrassed. They absolutely should. They don't give a shit about you. So as they're riding around in their Lear jets and going on their yachts or bowling at the White House or going on fancy vacations or living in their third lake houses or whatever, oh boy, we feel so sad for them that they're embarrassed. My goodness, their friends at the New York Times will write scathing articles about how embarrassing it is. Fuck them. I don't care. They ought to be embarrassed. What's the fucking approval rating of Congress? You happy? You there right now? I vote Republican. I volunteer for the Republicans. Hell, just this week was doing more than the majority of Republicans, which was the bare minimum, which was working with Scott Presler, who actually is doing something. He's probably embarrassed by the Republicans, not because of this House debacle, but because for my entire adult life and for decades beforehand, people in my area of the world have been voting Republican, and the Republicans never do shit to help them out. Just like people in the inner city vote Democrats, which never do shit to help them out. That's what's embarrassing. What's embarrassing is the goddamn deficit. That's embarrassing. What's embarrassing is that we have people getting locked up for memes, that we have January 6 people getting locked up, that we have blatant lawfare in this country that's interfering in elections, that our FBI was used by the Obama administration and by Hillary Clinton as their personal Gestapo to rig elections against their opponent, Donald Trump. That's fucking embarrassing. What's embarrassing is the fucking fentanyl deaths. What's embarrassing is all the fucking Republicans that I voted for that are supposedly constitutional conservatives that didn't say a goddamn fucking thing when COVID lockdowns happened. That's embarrassing. What's embarrassing is seeing my friends and family that lost their small businesses and their homes and had loved ones die in nursing homes alone because these fucking Republicans were more interested in, well, what's the polling say we should say today, instead of standing up for what was right. That's embarrassing. But now they're all fired up. Did you see the reports? That one guy, oh my God, the reports are shocking. Matt Gaetz yesterday stood up to speak, and Kevin McCarthy said, sit down. And the one Republican said, if you don't sit down, I'll put you down. Oh boy, they're tough guys now. Woo, those Republicans, they'll get fired up now that their little kickback scheme to the Ukraine, now that that's in jeopardy, oh boy, they'll get fired up about that. They ain't give a fuck about all their constituents losing their liberty and their lives and their livelihood when it came to the lockdowns that they didn't do shit about. They ain't give a fuck about the fact they haven't done anything about illegal immigration for the past 30 years. They ain't give a fuck about these foreign wars that they keep finding. None of that. They didn't care about that. But oh boy, they'll get fired up today. Ooh, those fighting words. Big tough guys. By the way, it's probably the same establishment rhinos that bitched about Trump breaking norms. Now it's, oh, what a cool headline. They're threatening to punch Matt Gaetz or put him down. Fuck you. But Rob, the problem is Matt Gaetz didn't have a plan. What plan did you want him to have? Yeah, would it have been superior if Matt Gaetz had outlined, is like some ridiculous genius like Ozymandias, and The Watchmen that had chess moves played out for the next 10 years of exactly what was going to... Sure, I guess, if we could only wish for some savior to come save us all. Problem is, life isn't a comic book. That's not reality. Humans, all of them, are fallible. So with this level of corruption, breaking the House GOP voted to oust Jim Jordan as Speaker, I'm not surprised. We'll talk more about that specifically. Now look, I've had plenty to criticize, say, Donald Trump about. Anyone who's watched me can see that. Much to the chagrin of many of the people that watch me. I've criticized Ron DeSantis. I would say you'd be hard-pressed for me to find someone in the Republican Party that I haven't criticized. I've ever said a mean word about Ron Paul? Maybe. That'd probably be closest. But one thing I did say about Trump that was positive, that I think still stands true. Scott Adams used the word disruptor. I use the word demolition. You can't rebuild something on a crumbling foundation until you demolish it. That, to me, is what Donald Trump represented. It wasn't like Donald Trump. First off, Donald Trump wasn't some principled conservative or principled constitutionalist. That's what I would have liked to have seen. I would have liked to have seen an articulate, self-made person who valued the principles of the Constitution that came in and said the corruption in this country and its leadership class has gone too far. And I'm going to drain that corruption because I am principled. Instead, what we got was Donald Trump, who's very charismatic, who is a great public speaker that was saying the right things, but I think ultimately was flawed. He was more concerned with his own image, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because if that means, well, then he's petty and he'll go after the people that wronged him, and that happens to be a corrupt institution, so be it. But I'd prefer that wasn't the case. I'd prefer a president that was effective in going after these institutions, not because he was petty and wanted vengeance, but was because he understood the danger to our republic that it really served. Yeah, I know, Red Hulk, Kick is dead. I haven't got much of a push on there, which is my fault. But the beauty is, if you're on Kick and you can still engage in, if you look at the screen, you can still see what people are chatting. But I do apologize for that. But Trump didn't have some big plan. He was necessary as a disruptor, as a demolisher. That's still where we're at. We're not at the point. We're not even close to the point where it's like, this is what's so frustrating me when I debate all these people. I'll crush how corrupt the FBI is. I'll crush that, and they'll go, well, we shouldn't get rid of it. We need small reforms. How would you replace the FBI? I've talked about how there were things. Vivek had a good plan of how he would redirect the assets, the budget, etc., to other organizations like the Marshals, etc. But that's not even important right now. What's important is the disruption phase, the demolition phase. That's what Matt Gaetz represented. Someone had to stand up and show how corrupt the Republican Party is. That they talk a big game, but they don't give a shit about what their constituents want. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care that the bulk of their voters think that there were problems in the 2020 election. Don't give a shit. They don't care that the bulk of their voters no longer want this money to go to Ukraine. They don't give a fuck. They don't care that the bulk of their voters think there's corruption in places like the FBI and the censoring of disinformation on social media is corrupt. Don't give a shit. They don't care about any of it. They'll talk like they do so they could keep getting the votes, but then they don't do shit. And let me blackpill you a little further. Jim Jordan wouldn't have done shit either. He wouldn't have. And so to the people that say, well, what's the difference, Jim Jordan, Kevin McCarthy? Yeah, at the end of the day, you're probably right. You're absolutely probably right. Or Steve Scalise. Yep, you're probably right. What's the difference? Yep. But the reason that what Gaetz did matters is get it on record so people could see it. How many times have I said this? You can't start fighting until your back's against the wall. If the people that you are allied with really don't give a shit about you, then your back's not against the wall. That's the truth. If you are a constitutional conservative, a bigger threat to you than Joe Biden is Mitch McConnell, is Kevin McCarthy, and what they represent. Because we have a two-party system where the way it's set up, it's almost impossible to get traction for a third party, and the actual populist values that represented why Donald Trump won, why the majority of Republicans voted Republican, is not embraced by the actual Republican leadership. That's more of a threat to you populist right-wingers than anything Joe Biden will do. Unless he locks you up and gets you sent to World War III and shit like that. But make no mistake about it, the establishment Republican Party has no fucking problem with that. They're totally fine with it. Same's true of the Democrats. I said this. If you were a progressive, a real progressive that was tired of the Obamas, the Clintons, etc., the worst thing that could have happened to you was Hillary Clinton winning in 2016. Because then it would have just been par for the course. If Trump won, you would be able to go back to the drawing board and say, well, the old tired line of, yeah, we hear you progressives, but we can't do anything for you. You got to keep voting for the corporatists. You know, someday we'll get to your issues, someday. But right now, our opponents are the most evil people ever, so you got to vote for us. It's the same bullshit line the establishment Republican Party tells. Yeah. I did it for years. For years, I was told the same thing. Oh, you like Ron Paul? Sorry, he had his chance. Yeah, we fucked him over in the primaries, but whatever. He had his chance, he lost. Now you got to pinch your nose and vote for John McCain. Now you got to pinch your nose and vote for Mitt Romney. Sorry, you got to do it. Now you got to pinch your nose and vote for Jeb Bush. Sorry, you got to do it. You have to. Oh, those dastardly Democrats are so evil. You have no choice but this time to pinch your nose and vote for someone who doesn't give a fuck about any of your interests because the other side hates you even more. So you got to do it. That's the game that the uniparty has played. And that's how, on the big issues, the sending money to these foreign wars, the bailing out the bankers, the massive printing of money, the leaving the border open, even lockdowns and things like that, they're all on board with that shit. That all resulted in making the average American's life worse and enriching the uniparty. They're on board with that shit, but you're constantly living in fear that the other side's worse. So I'll tell you right now, here in Pennsylvania, I'm not even fucking liked in my own county in the Republican Party. The Republicans that like me, I have to drive like 2 hours away out east to Williamsport. That's why I ran for office. Because I made the mistake of saying that I was going to run for office in my district at some point. Well, you can't do that. You got to wait your turn. You've seen me when I've talked to people that I like that are involved for years and years and years in the Republican Party in Pennsylvania. Go back and look at the streams I was doing going into the 2022 election, where I had these panels where I was on with, county commissioners and other people. And they're furious with me because I'm like, I don't give a fuck about your positions anymore. I don't give a fuck. The Republicans in Pennsylvania let us down. Why is voting massively changed? Well, it's because Republicans in the state house in Pennsylvania allowed Democrats to change that voting because COVID was so big and scary. And now they're going to lose in perpetuity. Yet those same people that failed us are out there saying, you got to get out the ballot box. Will you hand out signs, Rob? Will you make calls for us? Fuck you. You suck. You lose. They put up Dr. Oz to go against John Fetterman. We lost to a guy who had a stroke that doesn't know where he's at. How much leadership changed in the Pennsylvania GOP? Zero. The guy they're putting up for Senate this time, Doug McCormick, is a dude who lives in California most of the time, who's a ridiculous hedge fund manager, I think's what he does, who has connections to China, who lost his primary to run as governor. So they're putting the same fucking garbage people up. No one in the state level GOP's changed. If you remember, if you tuned into me the night after the 2022 election, that was what I said my entire channel was going to be. Getting rid of the state leadership of the GOP here in Pennsylvania. But nothing's changed. And I've been busy and I haven't done shit, I'll be honest. So here we are. Matt Gaetz calls Kevin McCarthy out on promises that he lied about. Getting the January 6 tapes out there. He lied. He never did it. Going back to none of these omnibus bills, but having each committee put their own budget out. He lied. He didn't do that. He was held accountable with his lies. So then they put up Jim Jordan, who is probably the best of the people that volunteered to run, even though I don't think he'd make any significant changes because the leadership of the Republican Party doesn't want changes made. They're more than happy. They feel, just like they're a bigger threat to you if you're a populist conservative, they know that you're a bigger threat to them than Democrats. They're happy to constantly be the minority party. They're more than happy with that. They don't give a shit because the Democrats that are running shit will just vote for the important shit that the Republicans running shit want anyways. What they don't want is an outsider. That's why they didn't like Donald Trump. That's why Donald Trump's allowed to be investigated in perpetuity and all this blatant bullshit lawfare to be used against him that's incredibly hypocritical when you see worse occurring on the other side of the aisle and no one says shit. And then anytime I debate someone, what's the first thing they say? Oh, the James Comey was a Republican, Chris Wray's a Republican, so that means that it must mean that it's not corrupt. It must be right, because the actual Republicans in institutional power, they fucking hate Trump. They hate his voters. That's why they're okay seeing them get sent to the gulag. They don't give a fuck. They don't care at all. They know that they have to pretend to give a shit about these people, because that's where the votes come from. But as soon as they're in office, they won't say shit or do shit to help them out until election season comes around, and then they'll be there. Oh, yeah, we're here. Yeah, we get it. Yeah. Bullshit. And I'll be honest, Trump's too arrogant to actually see through this. So you see a lot of these people, like in the district right beside mine, my former congressperson before they redistrict, Mike Kelly, a man who I actually thought I've met in person and thought was a good public speaker. That's why you see him writing in the name John Boehner for Speaker of the House and not voting for Jim Jordan. But Rob, didn't Mike Kelly do campaign stops with Trump? Yeah, he did. He did. Because he knew that's what he had to do to sell himself here in rural Pennsylvania. He don't give a shit. Mike Kelly, Mr. Millionaire car dealer, took tons of money in those PPP loans and then voted against transparency for all the money that got lost to those loans. That was another great fucking scam, those PPP loans. You see, people like me and you that live paycheck to paycheck and work like 9-to-5 jobs, we got fucked. But you know how many people scam the system, creating LLCs and things like that they were able to use to get these loans that they'll never pay back? By the way, loan's a bullshit name. All the rich people knew how to exploit that. I wonder why we had such a large transfer of wealth from the poor and working class to the upper class during those lockdowns. So there's good old Mike Kelly, one of the 20. He said, I'm taking a principled stance. I'd like to see Patrick McHenry, have the interim speaker have more powers. Right. Please keep funding Ukraine. Please keep massive budgets going. Please allow us to lock you down when we feel like it again. Please don't force us to have accountability, to be held responsible to my voters. And I know his fucking voters because I've lived here my whole life. I'm like 15 miles outside of the district. And again, I used to be within the district. I've lived within 20 miles my entire life. So I'll get to Mike Kelly here a little more in a couple seconds, but should Matt Gaetz have had a plan? Yeah, I guess it would have been better if he had a plan, but I don't give a shit. If I will guarantee you, if I would have run that congressional seat, I would have been right there with Matt Gaetz saying, yep, get rid of fucking McCarthy. Guy can't hold to the minimum. They couldn't bother to subpoena Hunter Biden yet. Couldn't do that. Couldn't do it, huh? We're taking our time. Couldn't do anything about the January 6 people. They're still in gulags. Couldn't do shit about that. Right? Couldn't be bothered. Did you follow the trial of, I forget his name, the one attorney that they're trying to disbar in Michigan? Because he suggested challenging the election in 2020. And he brings all these experts that say about all the anomalies in the 2020 election. Republicans couldn't be bothered to talk about any of that. It's time to move on. We can't focus on that. Well, it just so happened the very Republican that we didn't want to have power got screwed over that time. But it's time to move on from that. Vote for Nikki Haley. Good choice. So I'm sorry, I don't agree with John Burke. I like John Burke. I don't agree with him. I don't agree with all of these people on the right, some of whom I like. They're saying, Matt Gaetz, he was just a disruptor. He didn't have a plan. Great. What's he supposed to do? So what's their plan then? Hey, listen, guys, listen. We understand that the leadership of the Republican Party doesn't give a fuck about us. They don't care about their constituents. They're not going to do anything about illegal immigration. They're not going to do anything about the massive money printing. They're not going to do anything like hold the people that had lockdowns accountable. They're not going to do anything like hold the FBI accountable. In fact, they'll continue to fund it even further. They're not going to do anything like stop the weaponization against their own constituents by these institutions like the FBI. They're not going to do anything about the massive censorship being led by the government directed at social media companies to censor voices of their own constituents. They can't do anything like that. But we can't call them out on it until we have a plan. Can't do that. That would be premature. We can't actually have someone in Congress call them out unless they have a plan. Okay, so let's say that conservatively, 2/3 of the Republican people in the House are like the aforementioned group, that they don't give a shit about you. So what was Gaetz' plan going to be? How's Gaetz going to overrule 2/3 of the elected leaders in his party? What's he going to do? Even if he could get the other 1/3 on his side, what's the plan here? Could someone explain to me? What do these people that are saying Matt Gaetz didn't have a plan, what did they want him to do exactly? Anyone? What was he supposed to do? So then the plan was what? Just continue the status quo? Well, we can't call people out until we have a plan, but we won't have a plan that will be effectual until enough people are furious because we called them out. There's a nice little catch-22 for you. I'm sure 30 years down the road, once we're receiving millions upon millions of illegal immigrants a year, once we're printing trillions upon trillions of dollars a month or whatever, once we're in our 7th, 8th, 9th foreign war, maybe we'll reinstitute the draft. Let's demonize men and white people and Christians. Once we have, complete and total erasure of the concept of men and women, once all of our kids are being sexualized in school and shit like that, Once our guns are removed, once our free speech rights are removed, and we have FBI agents on every chat board, if you say anything critical of the government, that they'll throw your ass in prison. Maybe 30 40 years in the future, then we can start criticizing. Maybe it'll still be too soon. Eastman, that's right, John Eastman, Vita, thank you. Meanwhile, now we're in this terrible situation. What situation? Business as usual? With an interim speaker? Well, if only we had strong Republican leadership with all these problems in the world right now. That, it's all Biden's fault. If Republicans are there, what? If Kevin McCarthy was there, how would Biden's response and our administration's response to Israel-Hamas been different? What exactly would have been different? See, from my perspective, which is stop funding both of them, stay the fuck out of it. That's my perspective. How would Kevin McCarthy? Well, Kevin would have criticized Biden for not sending enough. Right. That's exactly what he would have done. That's exactly what the establishment Republican line was for Ukraine, for example. I'm like, oh, geez, they should be trying to have a peaceful resolution. That's what the United States should be. Instead, they're funding one side of this, and it's the Ukrainian people that are going to suffer the most. At the end of the day, eventually, they'll be left holding the bag. All of these people will die, and the United States will tuck tail and run. That's how it'll end at the end of the day. So instead of financing them to go in this perpetual war, they should be trying to have a peaceful resolution. That's what you should be doing. And the Republicans that I vote for, my party, were like, yeah, that's absolutely right. It is true that the current regime's not doing a good job because they're not giving enough. Look at my little Ukrainian lapel pin. Man, if we had a Republican Speaker of the House, then we wouldn't have this illegal immigration crisis. Except we did. What was done about it? Well, you see, in their budget, they planned on giving more money to ICE and border control. Oh, that would have done it. That would have done it, huh? You see the guy running the show. I've seen the border agents. I'm sure most of them are decent people, but I've seen them shaking the hands of the illegals crossing. They deserve a pay raise. That would fix it. It's a fucking joke, and you know it, and I know it, and all the people that are harassing you online, like on Twitter, these Republicans, oh, we need a strong, oh, what a mistake by Matt Gaetz. They know shit wasn't getting done. They fucking know it. Now, the one defense that I'll accept of Kevin McCarthy is, well, what could he realistically do? And that's true. If the bulk of the Republican representatives are establishment shills that don't give a fuck about their constituents, does having a figurehead as Speaker of the House change anything? No, not really. And that's why Jim Jordan wouldn't have changed anything. I agree. Would it be better to have people in leadership that would actually do something to fight this corruption and give a shit about their constituents? Absolutely. But we can't have that. We can't have that. Because the people that run the Republican Party don't give a fuck about you. They are a uniparty with the Democrats. They don't give a shit. And so the next best thing that we can have is fucking call them out. Get them on record. Get their names out there. Here's the 20 people that are willing to vote for Democrats. To keep actual meaningful change that their constituents want. Here they are. Get them on the fucking record. Then primary them. How many times have I told you I'm pretty much black-pilled on politics? That doesn't mean I'll stop fighting. I use this Steve Rinella quote all the time. I'm pessimistic with my brain, but optimistic with my feet. I'll keep working. I'll keep moving with my feet. But at the end of the day, I know that when I'm sacrificing my time, when I'm pushing for the Republican Party, which I am, even ones I don't like I did with Dr. Oz, and I would like the people that have followed me for a while. Was it evident that I didn't like Dr. Oz? Was it fucking evident? Yet I went to the rallies. I met with him. I fucking did a 24-hour show. I put videos out saying why you needed to go vote for Dr. Oz. I did feel he was better than the alternative. I absolutely jumped in with both feet. It wasn't my guy, but my guys didn't win, so that's what I did. And I'll keep fighting for the Republican Party because I feel because we're in a two-party system, that's the best chance we have for political change. But I'm pessimistic that that change will come from the political side. It'll come from the cultural side. It'll come from grassroots people changing their local school board, their local elections, their state elections, until there's a groundswell of people, new fresh blood that comes in to our national level politics that actually are willing to be held accountable by their constituents. But we ain't there yet. We ain't even close. We're still at the stage where we have to call these fucking liars out. And that's what Matt Gaetz has accomplished. And one of those liars is a man that I've stuck up for, that I've supported, that I've met in person, that I've talked highly of in public and private conversations, a man by the name of Mike Kelly, who is, what is it? It's District 13? And I'm seriously considering running in a primary against him for 2024. I'm seriously considering it. I don't have money. I don't have connections. I don't have the fucking time. I work 80 hours a week. I do the streaming. I try to be a good husband and dad. But who the fuck else is going to run? Who's going to do it? No one will challenge him. The county Republicans will say, oh, you gotta wait your turn. You gotta wait your turn. Well, how about instead we set up a meeting with coffee and you could voice your concerns and fuck them. He wrote in John Boehner. It's a contest for who hated their constituents more as Speaker of the Republicans, John Boehner or Paul Ryan. I'd give it to Boehner, though. You look at his interviews, it's like Mitt Romney's, all of his interviews that are coming out now. They fucking hate you. They hate you. That's who he wrote in. That's who Mike Kelly wrote in. Well, it's more about the process. That's what it's about. And here's the thing. Jim Jordan wouldn't do anything to rock the boat. He wouldn't. I'll guarantee it. Would Jim Jordan be slightly better than Kevin McCarthy? Maybe. But is he going to be able to change the minds of all of these establishment Republicans? No. He's not going to be able to. The vote against Jim Jordan isn't a vote that they're worried that he would be bad for them as Speaker. The vote is symbolic, saying, how dare you fucking upset the apple cart? It will be business as usual. And if a handful of elected officials that want to represent their constituents challenge us, we will punish them. We will blackball them. That's what the vote against Jim Jordan is. Have you heard any of the 20 people that spoke up against him? I've heard one, and he said, well, Jim Jordan's a potential election denier. How about the rest of them? Now, I don't want to fucking run. Last time I ran for office in a special election, it cost me $9,000 and I didn't take $1 in donation. I'm still fucking paying credit cards from. It's not fair to my wife. It's not fair to my son. I don't know when I'll find the time to do it. But who else is going to do it? I hope I could find someone that I could support and help. But goddamn. So, in a nutshell, all the people saying we're in this dire situation, the Republicans, they're embarrassed. I don't give a fuck. The situation's no different to me today than it was a month ago. At all. No different than when Kevin McCarthy was there. At all. Nothing they've done's changed my life. I don't give a fuck if they're embarrassed or upset. Good, they should be. They ought to be embarrassed and upset because they ain't doing shit for their constituents. But that doesn't get them fired up. No. Only gets them fired up when the Washington Post or CNN could say negative things about them. That's it. That's the only thing that'll get them fired up. So fuck them. I don't care. So go ahead and all the lefty streamers out there that want to ignore the fucking insane people on their side calling for genocide and shit like that, they want to ignore that and say, oh, let's look what's going on in the Republican-controlled House. Let them have their fun. I don't give a shit. Must be nice to be on a side that wins. Good for them. But they're all vapid, fucking worthless, moronic, sellout people that aren't worth listening to. Down to the fucking T, every last one of them. Yeah, well, of course, if my wife doesn't agree with me doing it, I won't do it. I love my country. I have an interest in politics, but I love my family way more. That will always come first. Always. Unabashedly so. So it's something I'll have to talk to my wife about. It would definitely be a team effort. But Not to mention, who the fuck wants to run for anything? You know how they'll, if I was a serious threat, you know how they'd tear my life apart? You know how many oh, there, my wife's watching. I did fix, my wife says, Rob fixed the washing machine this week. I was playing Play-Doh, yeah, on Courtney's new floors. That is also true. But yeah, if I would decide to run, it would heavily involve her. And why would she want that? More time and energy for her to be a single parent, basically. And then if I have any amount of success, they'll tear my fucking life apart. You know how many pictures or images or shit they could find of me when I was a fucking alcoholic, when I was a drunk, or when I used to do stand-up? How many curse words, bad jokes, shit like that? I just don't give a fuck. I don't care. I don't care about that. The people that love me. They know who I am. I've been honest with them. I don't give a fuck. What, do you smear me in the public eye? I don't give a shit. I don't care. But you got to be a fucking somewhat of a lunatic to volunteer to run for public office at this point, because how they'll ruin you. Especially if you're someone that's challenging the institutions that isn't independently wealthy. So obviously it would have to be a decision that I would make with my wife. But I could say this from the bottom of my heart, whether it be running for Congress, or whether it be streaming. I don't give a shit to be the big man. I don't care. I'm not the type of person to be fulfilled that I got to be the biggest streamer in the world, or the biggest populist streamer, or I got to be the person that wins Congress. I don't need that shit. I don't need it. I'm happy to live in relative obscurity as a fucking redneck with the greatest wife and the greatest son in the world. And some dogs and guinea pigs that are okay. I'm more than happy to do that. Absolutely. If I died tomorrow, my life has been a rousing success because of my family. I don't want to fucking go off to Washington and then maybe become something that I hate. With a bunch of fake fucking people that don't care about the people of this country and only care about themselves. And have to sit there and have handshakes and dinner. I don't want to do that. But who the fuck wants to do it that would be any good? That's the shitty system we have. That's why I have so much respect for someone like Scott Presler, who's actually out there doing the hard, difficult, on-the-ground work that is thankless, that's out there plugging away every day. So that's my takes on that. Hamas, let's get to it. Did you see the insurrection? Did you see it? Hey, it's cool. All of a sudden, it's cool again to overtake Congress. It's hip. It's cool. Yeah, I know, Puck Flicker. Maybe it would change me. I don't know. I'm not infallible. Maybe I'll win and you'll see me doing a stream like this 4 years from now and going, hey, make sure you send money to my super PAC. And, we just had to fund Ukraine some more. And you'll be like, fuck this guy. I remember when he was on here drinking a beer, upset that his guinea pig died. Talk about how he hated these people. Now look what he's become. Yeah, maybe. I'd sooner not put myself in that chance. So it's cool to overtake Congress again. Now it's cool. Now it's not an insurrection. Now it's not a danger. What do you think would have happened if one of those protesters there, if you didn't see it, you're living under more of a rock than me, busy all week at work, a bunch of pro-Palestinian people break into Congress and got arrested and shit like that. Imagine if one of them would have got shot like Ashley Babbitt. What do you think that would have looked like? Maybe if they started spraying tear gas and shit like that, and then people started fighting back. Could we then have said it was an insurrection? Could we have? Rashida Tlaib spoke there. I assume FISA warrants will be issued against her, right? I assume that they'll be subpoenaing all of her communications. All the people that they arrested, I assume they'll be subpoenaing all their communications. And then they will be subpoenaing pundits. Maybe Hassan will get subpoenaed. Let's see all Hassan's communications, or Tlaib's, or Cori Bush's, or AOC's, right? Let's see all their communications. Mehdi Hassan and MSNBC. Let's see his Rachel Maddow. Let's see their communications, right? It's only fair. Time to subpoena them. Oh, and if they don't comply, well then contempt of Congress, or contempt of court, like Steve Bannon, right? Throw him in prison. Those are the rules, right? Day's going good, Jeff. Glad to hear from you. Now, you know damn well what'll happen. Let me just, you ready? Here's what's going to happen. First off, there will be institutional support for all of the people that were there. The number one most important thing in this battle is perceptually how our media and how our national conversation treats people. And you know damn well these people will not be treated as insurrectionists by academia, by the entertainment industry, by the people that run social media, by members of Congress, and by our mainstream media. And so they'll win that battle of public opinion, right? People might say, well, it was hasty what they did, but their heart was in the right place, and maybe they committed some small crime and they should be held accountable. So they'll already win the public perception. The lawfare, do you think that there's one law firm in this country that will be afraid to represent these people? You think there'll be one? Do you think that organizations like the ACLU will attack lawyers that want to defend these people? Of course not. Do you think that these lawyers will be looking at possible charges themselves? Like some of the people connected to Trump or January 6th were? Of course not. Of course they won't. There won't be any fear of that. Will they be facing disbarment? Like John Eastman? Of course not. Of course not. Now, what's likely to happen is some people will be slapped with some misdemeanors. Hell, you might even see a case of probation or two. No, that's terrible. Where are the Republicans? How many shows can I do to come on here and point this lawfare out and the fucking corruption of the double standard? Hey, thanks to the 50 people who are listening. I appreciate all of you. We ain't gonna change shit, though. Republican leaders ain't gonna give a fuck. Hey, y'all, remember when Jamal Bowman pulled a fire alarm and dumb fucking shitbag, asshole, loser, hypocrite fucking bootlickers like Pisco and so many other of these people on the left that I debate say, well, you know, it's probably more likely that he thought pulling the fire alarm opened the door than he thought the alarm would cause a delay. How'd that go? You want to know how that's going? I'll tell you how the investigation into Jamal Bowman actually breaking the same law that they're trying to throw people for 10 fucking years that are Trump supporters in for delaying an official proceeding. You want to know how it's going? It's going the exact same way that transcript of that Nashville trans shooter being released is. Remember that? Oh boy, if it's a right-winger that shoots someone up, we get their fucking manifesto within the week. But a trans shooter, well, we can't release it. That'd be dangerous. Sorry. Sorry about that. Oh, Fish Lover. Sign up, little pig. Would you like to call in, Fish Lover 1984? Go ahead. Would you like to call in? After all, it would be easy to dispense if a, quote, psyop little pig like me, right? That'd be easy. It'd be easy to do. Surely you have a telephone so you could call in, or you have Discord, right? Ain't that right? Because you're a big talker there in the chat. I'm sure you're doing real things in the real world to actually make a difference. You sound so articulate. So why don't you call in? Oh, you're not calling in. See you, coward. Lefty or DeSantis supporter? Trump's not real. Yeah, he is. He exists. Secondly, did I seem to be doing a lot to talk about Donald Trump being a hero or savior or something like that? I'm not drunk. I'm halfway through one beer, and that's all I'll be drinking. The one thing I could say, I talked about this the other, I don't give a shit. And keep in mind, I hope you're following me at Rumble. I know I don't interact a lot with my Rumble audience. One, because I don't have a big Rumble audience. Secondly, because their chat doesn't show up. Doesn't work through Restream that way. Or you can follow me on Kick, or you can follow me on X. Eventually I'll be kicked off YouTube and Twitch. You know, again, don't get blackpilled on life. Life is wonderful. You know if you're a good person. You know if you think that you're trying to do the right thing. Your family, your friends, your things like that, all more important. What you're contributing to your community, to your family, to your neighborhood, far more important than any of this political shit. Even if tomorrow we're all locked up. Cosmically, we're just dust in the wind. I close my eyes. But it's true. It's not worth sitting here getting depressed. It's not. But let me say, it does look fucking bleak sometimes, doesn't it? But one thing, if you're a petty asshole like me, one thing you can take comfort in, all these stupid fucking people on the left that are cheering this authoritarianism and corruption on, they're going to be fucked worse than you. You understand that? When eventually the very authoritarian systems they cheer on turns on them, they're going to be shocked. That's why one of the things I love today. I love watching all of these lefties, particularly ones in positions of power, people that are wealthy or have cultural influence that are in the media or in politics or other places or involved in academia. I love watching the ones that are like, I'm shocked at the people on campus, college students on campuses saying Israel doesn't have the right to exist. No shit. If you're on the left, and you supported movements like BLM, and you supported like the demonization of white people and Christians and men, etc. Now you're shocked that those same groups are doing the same with Jewish people? Didn't you understand what you were creating? And the truth is, most of those people were more than willing to participate in that system that was engaged in this cultural Marxism, weaponized when it was against Trump supporters. Or as Rick Wilson points it, the 10-toothed rubes that are afraid of the brown horde. Because, you know, if you want a country that actually represents your beliefs and a government that actually represents you as opposed to people around the world, foreign people, then you're a racist. Now those people are shocked. Oh, we thought if we drove up racial animus and bigotry against men and bigotry against Christians, that would just benefit us. We didn't know it would ever be used against us. Now we're shocked. And this has been the story of the... And you know what's funny? Most of them didn't know. Most of them really didn't. It's like, you remember when you had a bunch of fucking unhinged Bernie supporters in 2016? And they were showing up like, you know, you had all these fucking crazy, like super progressive Antifa types that were showing up at Trump rallies and Patriot Prayer and stuff like that. And they were starting fights, which by the way is why the Proud Boys came to prominence in the first place. Because you had all these like sort of Trump-like rallies that right-wingers were going to. Then Antifa types would show up with like boards with nails in them and start beating the shit out of people. So then you got these group called the Proud Boys that were like, well, fuck it, we're going to show up and we're going to fight those people. Because in places like Portland and others like that, the local police were told to stand down and let the right-wingers get their ass kicked. Can you show me in 2016 how many times you saw Trump supporters showing up to left-wing rallies starting fights? Didn't see many of that, did you? So they were, oh, that was fine. Fuck it. Yeah, interrupt. Remember those videos that were Sheeta Tlaib, like screaming, disrupting, you know, Congress people and speeches she didn't like? And then, 2016, okay, Bernie loses the primary, and now you're at the DNC convention and it's Hillary's. You remember Sarah Silverman getting on stage because you had all these Bernie supporters outside that were like burning American flags and pissed off and chanting because they felt that the DNC screwed Bernie. And she was like, it's time to grow up. It's time. You had all these official Democrat people. It was fine when those people were targeting, you know, Trump supporters. That was fine. They were cool. But once the monster turned on them, then it was, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. It's okay for Harvard to demonize white people, for the students of Harvard to do that. It's okay for them to bash Christians. It's okay for them to bash straight people. It's okay for them to bash men. All that was cool. That was cool. No one was talking about, well, wait a minute, maybe we need to out these people and make sure that they can't get hired at, mainstream corporations. No one gave a shit. Yeah, fuck white people, fuck men, fuck Christians. Screw them. Who cares? But Jewish people, oh boy, now it's a big deal. Can't do that. Can't have that, can you? By the way, I'm not saying if you're Jewish that you shouldn't have the right to speak up to people that are literally calling for your genocide and demise. Absolutely. Similarly, if you're Islamic or Palestinian or whatever the fuck you want to call yourself, and you feel that there are calls to genocide against your people, and you want to speak up against that, absolutely. Why not? But isn't it funny? No one gave a fuck when it was like white people or Christians. Christian genocide in Armenia? Oh, who gives a shit? Oh, whatever. We don't got time for that shit. Right? Who gives a fuck? The people that are telling you right now that you got to have a bleeding heart for Israel and we got to sacrifice, maybe we'll end up in war and we got to send millions of dollars for Israel, and said the same shit about Ukraine, here's a little secret. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care. Hell, they don't even care about the people of Israel or Ukraine. They don't give a fuck. If they did, if it was a moral, principled stance, then there'd be hundreds of times all around the world that they would making that same principled stance. Like in Yemen. Or Armenia. Or what we did to Libya, and now the open slave market's there. They don't give a shit. They don't care. They never did. What do you think about this hospital story, Rob? Well, here's what happened. The hospital got bombed, and then Hamas said it was Israel, and then the New York Times and a bunch of places came out and said it was Israel, and Hassan and all these left-wing streamers said it was Israel. Oh my God, it's monstrous, blah, 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 blah. And then Israel came out and said, no, we have definitive evidence, and unlike Hamas, they actually showed things that appear to be evidence that suggest Hamas did it. Now it looks like Hamas did it. Now all these places from mainstream outlets that originally went with the Hamas line are saying, oh, well, we're not quite sure what happened. What do you think about all that? What did I say from the get-go? It's the same shit I said with the Ukraine situation. All sides are shitheads. All sides have a reason to propagandize to you. When an event happens in real time, there will be propaganda released about it, and you'll have no clue which side is right. That is up to and including the original invasion of Hamas's terror attack on Israel. We don't know the truth. 40 Israeli babies were beheaded. Really? Were they? What's the proof? But Rob, haven't you seen videos? Nope. I went out of my way to not watch videos of children being harmed. Do I believe that some children were harmed? Absolutely. Does my gut tell me that they were specifically targeted? Probably. Some. Was it 40 beheaded? Probably not. Sounds like bullshit propaganda. Sounds like the incubator babies that got us into the first Gulf War is what it sounds like. But if it was one baby beheaded versus 40, does that change the scale of things? Probably not really. It's fucking monstrous. I understand that my take on this, just like my take in Ukraine, might not be particularly spicy. But I have a reason for my take. And that take is, get the fuck out of funding either side of this. Stop it. It's terrible what's happening there. Terrible what's happening to Armenians. Terrible what happens in Syria. Terrible what happened in Libya. Terrible what's happening in Yemen. Terrible what happened in Afghanistan. The United States leadership has lost fucking credibility to intervene in these things. They lie over and over. They intervene and they make the situation worse. That's it. The Israel-Ukraine situation is a little different. You see, the Ukraine situation, all of our leadership's in agreement. All of it. Gotta keep funding Ukraine. Gotta keep that war going. Big money maker. Gotta keep it going. Republican leadership agrees. Democrat leadership agrees. President agrees. Most presidential candidates on both sides agrees. A little different with Israel. And I talked about this going way back into the Obama years. See, the difference is, certainly, for years and years and years, it is absolutely true to the detriment of the United States that the United States has bought in to the sending of money and military, etc., 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 to Israel. And it is, in my opinion, made things worse because the United States has lied itself into wars all across the globe for my entire adult livelihood. They no longer have the credibility to do things such as that. But regardless of what you think of that, with Obama, with the rise of cultural Marxism that was used by our leadership, and this all ties in. I talk about this a lot. When I went to college, I started college in the fall of 2022, or I'm sorry, the fall of 2002. I wasn't really into politics. My senior year in high school, 9/11 happened. I was like any shithead 17-year-old that had any interest in national level politics was like, get those fuckers. Whoever attacked us, get them. But I wasn't particularly paying attention to anything more than what the TV told me. I wasn't like sifting through articles and shit like that. Then as I started to get a little more involved in college, there was a big anti-war movement. And I became, even before I knew Ron Paul, sort of an almost anti-war libertarian. I started to think that there was bullshit. I criticized the Iraq war. I marched with left-wingers. The left-wingers hated me for my pseudo-libertarian takes. They thought I was stupid economically, but I was a good guy because at least on the important issue of the war, I was with them and questioning it. So I was okay. I was tolerable. All it took was 2 administrations, the Obama administration basically continuing those policies and being a cool first black president was doing so. And all of a sudden, like I used to go to these concerts like Punk Against Bush. And like Bruce Springsteen was against Bush. Bush lied, people died, Cheney's a war criminal. All the Hollywood celebrities, all the musicians, all the cool people were saying it. Then all of a sudden, but Obama's a cool guy. All of a sudden they were pretty quiet when Obama was basically just carrying out the foreign policy of George Bush. Then Trump comes in. Trump wasn't perfect. He said shit foreign policy-wise. It was like, well, if we're going to go in, we should take their oil. It's fucked up. He bombed Syria. Fucked up. But he started to question why our intel agency was getting us in all these wars. And that's all it took. The people that I went to rallies and shit with against the Iraq war, these lefties, the biggest anti-war people you'd ever meet, now all of a sudden are the biggest pro-war people. Totally for it. Total unquestioning acceptance of our foreign intel and our domestic intel agencies. I believe everything the CIA and the FBI says, they say. And I've talked about this a lot. What a propaganda victory. 2 administrations is all it took. 2. That's what sort of this cultural Marxism is allowed. That's what placating, that's it is true that it's not a left versus right fight. That's absolutely true. It is an establishment versus a populist fight. And there are populists on the left. There absolutely are. And I have talked to them and have an affinity for them, even if I think that a lot of their policies are dog shit. In fact, the best answer to them is, if you think that our institutions are corrupt and that's why you're a populist, why would you be a socialist and want to give the institutions more power? I'm sure it'll be different if we just give them total power. But Israel is always a little different, right? They use this sort of cultural Marxism because placating to the voice of the left, which was winning the culture war, it has won. We'll see the pendulum starting to swing back. We'll see how far it goes. They could sell their war as long as they couched it in language that the left found acceptable. They couldn't do it with the right. They can't do it anymore. They couldn't send us to war in Ukraine and be like, freedom fries for God, love, and country. They can't do that shit anymore. But if they do it in a way that Hollywood could get behind, that the left-wing mainstream, journalists that are getting out of universities that are in all of the legacy media now, if they could do it in a way that they like, in language they like, then it's great. So we can still drop bombs on people as long as they're rainbow colored. Look, here's an ad for the CIA. We now accept trans women in fucking wheelchairs. Whee! It's all good now. Now it's all good. But there's a problem when it comes to Israel. See, Israel, to us, to Jewish people, many of them, this obviously isn't universal. They look at Jewish people as oppressed. So white people are oppressors. Well, who's oppressed? Brown people, Hispanic people, Asian people, Jewish people. They're all oppressed. The problem is, some of those groups don't view it that way. For example, you see when Asian people say, hey, we're oppressed, so why aren't we being discriminated against at Ivy League schools? And people say, oh, no, you're not oppressed. All of a sudden, you're not a person of color. You're just like those evil fucking white people. You're an oppressor. See, look, it turns out that on average, you make more money. And it turns out on average, you go to prison less. See, you're an oppressor too, Asian person. You're only oppressed compared to white people. So if it's white person versus Asian person, the Asian person's oppressed. But if it's Asian person versus black person, oh boy. Same with Jewish people. Jewish people, when you think of Jewish people being, remember all these anti-Semitic hate crimes that were increasing in New York, all of the anti-Asian hate crimes in New York. Remember hearing about this? Then you started to get video footage of who the people were that were committing these crimes. Let's just say they didn't look like MAGA voters. So then we stopped talking about it. Oh, okay. Well, never mind then. That's all the establishment knows to do. You take one group, you demonize them, you make them the great evil, and then every problem that happens, that group's fault. It's white people. So if you're going to break it into race, it's white. If you're going to break it into religion, it's Christians that are the problem. If you're going to break it into sex, it's men that are the problem. If you're going to break it into sexuality, it's straight people that are the problem. That's what cultural Marxism is. One group's the oppressor, the other groups are oppressed. So when something doesn't fit the narrative, they're not sure what to do. So it was more than cool when it was, oh, anti-Semitism, that's Trump voters, that's white people. Now what? Whoops, it turns out that's not exclusively the case. Turns out there's an awful lot of left-wing people that don't really care for Jewish people. Now what? Now what do you do? Especially if you totally signed off on the ADL censorship of people and the deplatform people that are anti-Semites and blah, blah. It's okay to have rallies against white people and against Trump people and blah, 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 blah. If you signed off on all that shit, and now those same groups that you defended, like Black Lives Matter or students at Harvard, are like, yeah, from the river to the sea, get rid of Israel. They're colonizers. Rape and shit like that against them, that's just self-defense. And they're correctly so flabbergasted. And again, I said this from the beginning. I found it to be a take that was in the realm of acceptability. If you said, I'm not sure I believe these stories. I'm not sure I believe Hamas took hostages. I'm not sure I believe they raped people or they killed children. Okay, but when I first talked about this, I was like, pay attention today. There's an awful lot of people saying, well, even if it did happen, or I assume it happened, and it's okay. It's self-defense. And I said, they'll try to rewrite history later. Once the pushback comes in, it's like, do you see how fucking monsters these people are? They'll say, oh, I never believed it happened. Yes, you did. Or at least when you thought that it was a possibility, you still defended it. That doesn't mean that everything that's being reported, by the way, is accurate. Again, much of it won't be accurate. Both sides have the incentive to propagandize, of course. So I saw videos like, a Jewish girl crying on campus, like, my God, there are people rallying right now that's saying because I'm a Jew, I'm a colonizer. If my people get raped and killed, it doesn't matter. Yep. By the way, that's what they feel about white people too in the United States. They feel that you're a colonizer, that this is the Indians' land. That's how they feel. That's a perfectly acceptable societal point of view. That won't get you fired from anywhere. That won't get you shamed. You could say that. You could say that publicly. It's okay. Nick Cannon could go on a screed about how white people are genetically inferior and they're like animals and shit like that. He's still going to host MTV shows and Nickelodeon shows. Won't matter. Now say that about Jewish people and see what happens. Say it about black people and see what happens. Now, I'm not here to play white grievance either. That's not the point of what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when you play that game, when you say, my political ideologies left-wing or it's pro-establishment. And I see the benefit in dividing people along these lines, racially, economically, religiously, sexual orientation. And I like this one group's oppressor and the other group's oppressed. Inevitably, that shit will come for you. By the way, feminists are finding it out. That's what feminists are finding out with the trans movement. They were like, men are oppressors, women are oppressed. Trans people say, we agree, we're women. And the women say, no, you're biological males. You can't come into my space. And they say, you see, cis people are oppressors and trans are oppressed. So you as a cis woman are an oppressor. You see so much hate against white women. That's the game. I have strong Yakubian energy. Thank you. I got a big head. So you can't help but laugh. You can't help have a little gallows humor. To be like, what'd you fucking expect? Yeah, I see all these and it's funny because it's all these mainstream journalist type people you see on social media. I donate money to Harvard. I can't believe what I'm hearing. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? And it's happening in other ways. All these lefties that were like, defund the police. How dare it's anti-Semitism to say that George Soros is backing district attorneys that are going to soft on crime. That's anti-Semitism. And now their neighborhoods are being wrought with crime and they're like, what's happening? Right. You didn't think you'd have to live with the consequences of your own ideology. You thought it would be, the underclass, the poor working class people, the working class white people and black people and Jewish people and Asian people. You didn't give a fuck about them. You thought that you were immune. Oh, if there's massive gun crime, that'll be in the inner city. If there's massive poverty, that'll be in inner city and in rural America. Won't affect me and my high-end community. So when you see how dire things are looking, just remember, the smug fucking people that acted better than you, that licked the boots of this authoritarianism and of these cultural ideologies that sought to demonize people, they're going to get it harder than anyone. And you get to laugh at that. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. Now, I don't cheer for the death of anyone. You won't see me on here taking victory. I saw it, and I don't blame people for doing it. I saw it when people that were like, fuck you, defund the police, blah, 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 when they end up getting murdered. I saw the people saying, You won't see me doing that. Basically for my own karmic reasons. I can't celebrate the death of people, with very few exceptions. I always remember everyone has loved ones, and when someone goes, it's not just them, it's the people around them. Isn't it amazing seeing how many of I got to see the president of Harvard come out and say, the reason we're not going to punish these Palestinian protesters that said things that many people find heinous about the attack from Hamas on Israel is because we're a free speech campus. Fucking laughable. Absolutely. Free speech campus. Do we need to show the videos of when conservatives try to speak on campus? But now all of a sudden it's free speech. And they try to turn it on you. They go, where's all the anti-cancel culture people on the right? Where are they? Hey, fuck you. I've told you from the get-go where I stand on it. I'll choose within my own code of morality to defend or condemn what I want. I owe nothing, absolutely nothing, to people that identify as left-wing that allowed this cancel culture, authoritarian bullshit to go on for over a decade and celebrated or ignored it, that are then targeted by it, that want to look with me in puppy dog eyes and go, but where are you? I thought you were against cancel culture. Fuck you. You ain't gonna hear a peep from me. I'll say it if I feel it. Just like I said to Pisco the other night, I don't owe him a goddamn thing. I'll tell you people, I don't want to see FISA warrants abused to go after people I politically disagree with. I don't want that. I would condemn that. I'll be damned if I owe Pisco an answer. Someone who cheered that shit on. Fuck him. Fuck him. You know who I owe accountability to? Myself, my family, other people that did the moral thing and spoke up against this when it wasn't popular to do. Those are the people I owe. Not the people that cheered it on when it benefited them. And then as soon as they're targeted or the people they like are targeted, they go, but wait, we're our allies. Fuck you. I don't care. Maybe I'll speak up. Maybe I won't. Fuck off. I owe you nothing. I'm sick and tired of it. What am I going to do? Maybe I'll get in a panel next week. Maybe it'll be with Pisco and a bunch of other people. I'm going to get in a panel. Let's say we have a conversation about Israel-Hamas. I'm going to be on a panel seriously with people that think that pulling a fire alarm was done because the more likely scenario was it was to open a door rather than cause an alarm to cause a distraction. I'll give you an example, right? And this might offend some people that are stronger Christians than me. I used to have this friend in high school who had this other friend that I ended up hanging around with this other friend. So like, we'll call my friend, we'll call Bob, and then the other friend we'll call Dan. That's not their real names. So I didn't really have a relationship with Dan other than he was always around Bob. And Dan knew that I liked to argue and things like that. And Dan was a young earth creationist. So Dan believed, for example, that Satan put dinosaur fossils in the ground to confuse people because dinosaurs never existed. They didn't exist. It's just all a trick by Satan. And the earth's only 5,000 years old and blah, blah, blah. Now, I didn't really give a shit. I, at that point, was an atheist or agnostic, but I didn't talk about religion to people. And I didn't shit on people that were religious. I now consider myself a bad Christian, but for what it's worth. Anyways, I never said shit about it. This dude was on me constantly. You're afraid to debate about it. You're afraid, I'd crush you in this debate. You know that the dinosaurs weren't real. You know that Satan put them, you know it, and you know you can't defend it, so you won't debate. So this went on for like a month, 4 or 5 interactions with this guy doing it. Finally, one day we went to a Denny's, and he's starting shit with me on it. And I just started to fucking rip on him about how stupid this was, right? And my Bob, our mutual friend, was like, okay, stop. I was like, okay. And then the conversation changed, and he was like, I liked the new Star Wars movie, whatever, insert any movie. I like that movie. I like that. I was like, you see, Dan, no one gives a fuck about your opinion because you think dinosaurs are fake. So fuck you. Fuck you. I don't care. You might say, this is a delicious beer. I'm going to take a drink of this beer. It's delicious. And I would say to him, I don't give a fuck what you think. You think that dinosaurs were fake. You think the Earth's only 5,000 years old and Satan planted dinosaur bones to trick us all. Your opinions mean jack shit to me. That's how I feel about someone like Pisco now. But Rob, I think actually if you look at the textual language of this law, USC 1783B, I think if you look at it, actually, you'd need to provide that there was some sort of intent for blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Pisco, you think pulling a fire alarm was more likely because the guy wanted to open a door rather than cause a distraction. So fuck you. Your opinion, that says all I need to know about you. Either you're so fucking stupid that your opinion means nothing on anything, or, which I don't believe, you're such a fucking hack that you're unwilling to admit the obvious, which means that there is no need to have a debate with you on anything. What level of proof could I offer higher than dude pulled the fire alarm to cause a distraction? And you're like, nah, I think it's more likely he did it to open the door. There is no level of proof that I could offer that would ever make him concede. Ever. Ever. When you're dealing with people that are so willing to have cognitive dissonance or blatantly lie about reality for their own partisan reasons, it becomes irrelevant to discuss anything with them. Okay, Rob, let's not talk about politics. Who you got in the Steelers game this week? I don't give a fuck. I don't want to talk to you. I can't be trusted that your opinion is good faith anymore because you believe that a guy pulled a fire alarm to open a door was a more likely scenario than to cause a distraction. I don't care. I don't care what your opinion is on the new Star Wars TV show. Don't give a fuck. Don't care at all. You could be giving your honest opinion, or you could be being a fucking blatant shill, blatantly lying to us. That's simple. Now, does that mean I'll never talk to Pisco or any of the other people that are that bad? No. because you got to talk to someone. What's the alternative? Either talk to no one or talk to people that talk about putting ecstasy up their asshole, like people I've talked to in the past. But know that I know who these people are. I know who they are. Is there anyone on this space that isn't a narcissistic asshole? Self-serving asshole? I am. I'll admit it. I suck. You have to be somewhat of a lunatic to want to be a streamer. And the bigger you get, the worse it is. But at least I'm likable. At least I'm fucking struggling openly with people about what my personal benefit and beliefs are. I'll admit I'm biased. When I go on Sitch and Adams show, they fucking flip out when they say, you're biased, you're biased, you're biased, you're biased. I'm like, yes, so are you. How dare you? How dare you call us biased? We're centrists. We can't be biased. Fuck you. Yeah, Hassan and Vosh, they're two paragons. So now you see these fucking horrible takes from all these left-wing people. It's so funny to watch because it's the left calling them out. What are we going to say? Those of us that are on the right that are on Twitch. Who you got? Me? Lecture fan? CTV still streaming? Counterpoints? What are we going to say? Rob, look, here's Hassan justifying rape and murder of fucking Israeli people. Nope. I'm shocked. No one gives a fuck what I say. I've been talking about these lunatics for fucking years. You couldn't see it with Black Lives Matter? You couldn't see it? You couldn't see it with the insane trans shit? So now it's only a conversation when other people on the left are calling out people on the left. Oh, Ethan from H3H3, now he's calling out radical people in his community. Yeah, those people aren't new. They've always been there. You just agreed with them on the groups that they were radical about. Oh, white people, Christians, yeah, fuck them. But Jewish people, oh boy. Thank you so much, Cleo. I appreciate it. You see, that's always the game with this cultural Marxism. We've seen it over and over and over again. Remember the Orlando nightclub shooting? You had a Muslim guy shot up a gay bar. Now, by the way, if you ever looked into that, it doesn't look like he was targeting a gay bar, believe it or not. But I digress. At the time, that's what it appeared. So you had people in the gay community, which had said what we'd always said. You know, for example, Douglas Murray, someone I follow, great speaker from the UK. And I remember him giving this speech, and he was like, as a gay man himself, Douglas Murray, he's like, I'll walk up to people that'll be like, oh, you're gay, and, you know, show me a bishop, show me a vicar, and I'll condemn them for calling out gay people. But not the imam. Won't do that. Won't criticize the Muslim. You know, that actually wants to kill the gay people. Criticize the bishop that says, well, I think that you're sinning and that you shouldn't be allowed to get married. But won't criticize the Muslim religious person that says, I think you ought to be beheaded or stoned. They won't criticize them. Why? Well, it doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't fit Muslims are oppressed and gays are oppressed. So Muslims can't oppress gays and gays can't oppress Muslims. Only white people and Christians can oppress both. So you can't speak up against a Muslim that doesn't like a gay person because those are two oppressed groups. Who are you to do that? Particularly if you're not in either group. Now you're an oppressor, you see? And that's the worst thing you could be. You don't have the right to speak on the behalf of oppressed people. You see? So when the Orlando shooting happened, you had a bunch of gay people that were like, well, wait a minute. How's the Democratic Party represent me and also Islamic beliefs? Because even as a LGBT person, if I'm upset about, you know, hardline, like let's say you'd look at someone like Andrew Wilson. You'd be like, I don't like Andrew. He's an Orthodox Christian. He probably doesn't believe as a gay person I should be allowed to get married. Yeah, but you know what he doesn't believe? That you should be imprisoned or executed. And there's an awful lot of Muslims, particularly in countries that are ran by extremist Islam, that do believe that. So how are you going to criticize Andrew Wilson but not them? Particularly if you're a political party like the Democrats that's embracing those places. So you'll embrace Palestine. And someone mentioned it. We got queers for Palestine, gays for Palestine, LGBTQ for Palestine. They'd fucking behead you. That doesn't mean that you can't say, I feel that Israeli treatment in Gaza has been wrong. That's fine. But the idea that you act like these are virtuous people, they don't fucking like you. They don't. And if you win, and you help Palestine win, and you import large groups of these people to this country, and they get their way, you will be outlawed. That's why Trump is such an important figure politically. Trump represents the cartoon caricature of everything that the cultural Marxists are believed to hate. He's white. He's straight. He's allegedly Christian. He's rich. He checks every box of oppressor. Cartoonishly, like exaggerated. That's their alliance. What do gay people and Muslims have in common? Fuck. Remember, when gay marriage was shut down in California in the 90s, what was it, like Proposition 18 or whatever? People were shocked that it was shut down in left-wing California. How'd that happen? By the way, it wasn't as left-wing back then. It was because the black community overwhelmingly voted against it. Turns out, the black, Proposition 20, the black community and the Hispanic community, obviously these are generalities, and there's generalities, there are always exceptions. Most of them have beliefs that are more culturally conservative than the average white person. But you ain't gonna see no documentaries about how much the black community or the Hispanic community, particularly like immigrants from Mexico, dislike gay marriage or something. You won't see that because that goes against the little coalition that they've built. So it's funny watching them scramble to, oh, I didn't know that the monster I created would turn on me. Whoopsie daisy. These are people that would watch your life fucking ruined. They'd watch you smeared. They'd find a fucking post of yours from when you were in high school in your yearbook and use it to ruin you, to leave you unemployed, possibly jailed, fucking shamed. Your family, they'd cheer if your family never talked to you again. All because you had political disagreements with you and they found something that you said, a bad joke or something like that in the past. They'd fucking ruin you. And then they look at you with puppy dog eyes. Oh, the mean Muslim said something about a group I like. Can you help us? Where are you? Fuck you. I saw someone say, you can tell we're gearing up for war because the anti-white male hatred is dipped down. Yep. Need those white males for something, right? Send them off to die in the Middle East. We can use that. Hey, John Burke, stop complaining. Register to fight again, right? Fucking insane. Absolute insanity. Biden gave a good speech the other night. Did he? I didn't watch. I was busy with my family. He's great, right? I said this the other day. How the fuck can we have a conversation with people that are unwilling to admit the country's worse off today than it was under Trump? By almost any metric. You could say, well, yeah, but it's not Biden's fault or it's because of the shitty things Trump did. Okay, we can have a discussion. But if you can't admit things are worse now than they were in 2019, what's the sense of even fucking talking to you? Yeah, we talked about the insurrection, Luigi. Nothing will be done. Same thing will be done about the insurrection that was done about Jamal Bowman pulling the fire alarm to impede a congressional proceeding, which I was told was serious and was worth years in prison. Nothing's going to be done about that. Same thing will be done about releasing the Nashville trans shooters transcript. Nothing going to be done about that. We'll move on to the next news cycle, and that'll be that. And then a year and a half from now, I'll be on a panel, and someone will be yelling about the January 6th insurrection and how serious it was. And I'll go, remember when all those pro-Palestine people broke into Congress? And you remember all that shit? Because they were supporting what allegedly was, the beheading of Israelis and blah, blah. You remember that shit? And they'll go, that was different. whatever. And I'll say, how come there weren't like people that went to jail for years and years and years for that? How come they didn't do investigations to see if Congress people were connected to that? Why didn't they look through, have a big FBI task force with facial recognition software? Why didn't they do all that shit? And they'll go, this is what the left will say. Maybe they did. We don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe they did have arrests. We don't know. Anyway, it's January 6th. Why are you living in the past, Rob? That's such a long time ago. Anyways, Donald Trump and January 6th. That's what'll happen. And they'll win again because the feckless fucking Republicans will go, wow, this is an outrage. The double standard here is outrageous. And we're going to write a strongly worded letter right after we get to sending billions back to Ukraine again. That's the important thing. As long as we get those billions to Ukraine, then we'll write some strong worded letters and we'll be, Here's another thing I wanted to talk about briefly. I got to end by 4:30, but this is worth talking about. I've heard other people say this, but I wanted to ask this. What exactly is a proportional response for Israel? Now, again, my stance is the United States has no say in it. We should stay the fuck out of it. But what's this fucking argument? I don't want to see any innocent person die in Palestine, in Israel. I don't want to see kids affected. I would rather never see war again, if it's totally up to me. What would your response be if things are as we're told, right? Which maybe they're not. But imagine like Burning Man festivals going on, and all of a sudden China paratroops in, 1,000 soldiers, and they start butchering random fucking concert goers, right? And you have your sister was there, she gets murdered, and they take some hostages, and there's allegations they're raping people. And they take these hostages. What's the proportional response? Just curious. We supposed to... Would we have to protect U.S. tech and secrets that Israel has? Maybe we shouldn't have gave them those tech and secrets. No. And here's the truth. Israel can more than handle Hamas. That's the truth. They don't need our fucking help. Yeah, Burning Man did get screwed this year. It was kind of crazy. But people just throw this out there. And I'm sorry, there's an awful lot of... There is absolutely a reasonable position to say, and I find myself as one of these. I don't think that Israel's just the good guys and Palestine's just the bad guys. I don't think that. I think there's shitty things done on all sides. I think there are people, much like myself, on both sides that are just citizens of these areas that really have no control over what the leadership does. And does that person who's just trying to get along with their family and shit like that, do they deserve to die because the leadership of their particular geographic location or their religious sect or their nation does something heinous? No. But that's been the case in conflict and war throughout history. What are you supposed to do? Is there any acceptable point when the U.S. gets involved in Israel? Not this U.S., no. It is. I can't make this more clear, right? Let me give an analogy that hopefully you understand. I have to leave my house for a week. I have houseplants. I ask my neighbor, can you water my houseplants? Because we'd all agree it's better to have the houseplants watered than not watered, right? We agree. There's a chance they'll die. Their health will be poorly impacted if the houseplants aren't being watered. So I ask my neighbor, let's call him Bob again. And Bob says, sure, I'll water your houseplants. And then I come back a week later and the houseplants weren't watered and all of my shit got robbed. And Bob's now got my shit sitting out in his front porch. Then a month later, I have to go, and I got new houseplants, and I say, Bob, can you water my houseplants? And we all agree it'd be better to have my houseplants watered than not watered. And Bob says, sure, I'll water your houseplants. And then I go, and I come back a week later, and my houseplants are dead again, and all of my shit's stolen again, and there it is on Bob's porch. Then a month later, I have to go again. And I say, you know what? It would be better to have my houseplants watered than not. But I don't think I'm going to ask Bob to do it anymore. Because I think Bob keeps fucking shit up and stealing from me. And someone would say to me, but Rob, isn't there a point where your houseplants need water? At some point you would have to ask Bob to water your houseplants, right? Someone needs to bring in your mail. So at some point, Bob has to get involved, right? No, Bob's fucked up enough. Sorry, Bob, you fucking lose. That's where the United States is at. Maybe if they wouldn't have fucked up and lied to us about Vietnam and Afghanistan and Libya and Syria and Iraq and Ukraine, maybe then you could make a case for, shouldn't the United States at some point get involved? Maybe, maybe not, but not the way it is now. That's it. End of fucking discussion. They start invading the United States, that's a different story. It's not my fault I don't trust our institutions. It's their fault. And for all the people that want to guilt trip you, on the left and on the right, oh, but the U.S. needs to be involved. Bullshit. If that's how they felt, they should have been speaking up for the past 30 fucking years, as U.S. foreign policy has been an abject disaster built on lies. Could China attack the United States based on how low on ammo? Maybe, but it's not likely to see that, right? It'd be very stupid and difficult for a foreign nation to try to invade physically the United States, particularly when all you have to do is buy off its politicians, which is working. You're more likely to see proxy wars and the decline of the United States as the world's sole superpower. Yeah, for example, why would China invade the United States when they could just buy up all the land? Why invade? When they could just buy the politicians off. When they could have endowments to places like all of our universities that train the future leaders of our country. Yeah, and unlike Israel, the civilians are armed here. It would be brutal. It sounds like capitalism in action. No, I would say it sounds more like too much state-controlled power. The opposite of capitalism is what I would say. Because we have people in state leadership that are able to pass regulations and winners and losers that have done so against the interest of the constituents of this country. By the way, don't you just love socialists that want state to have more power? All you have to do is ask them this, okay, let's say MAGA totally wins. Then you're like, yep, give them total power. Means of production, all to MAGA people that won. Donald Trump and his people. They won, they have total means of production. You think they'd be cool with that? By the way, there's no reason that wouldn't apply culturally, so they also ban gay marriage. You'd be cool with that too, right, socialists? I mean, hey, who are we to have decisions? The government should have all of these decisions, right? It's so funny how they talk out of both sides of their mouth. On one hand, how corrupt these institutions are. Donald Trump tried to overthrow the government and all. These crony capitalists in control, these politicians, they're getting rich off all these corporations and shit like that. If only we gave them total control, then they would go from being evil, greedy people to great, awesome people that looked out for their constituents. Then they'd be good. There we go. Now OMG Sticks gets it. Wait a minute. If we didn't give corrupt politicians the power to pick winners and losers, then corporations would be corrupt. Right, instead of just paying off. Now, what would be less likely to happen is without the burdensome regulations, the massive money printing, the sending off the wealth of this country for the past 80 years, then we would have had people that could live in the American dream, a robust middle class that would have been more able to afford this land, houses, things like that, as opposed to these banks owning it all because of the corporate pressures that have been pushed onto our government that have allowed these governments to do things like lock us down and then massively inflate the money supply, which led to corporations and wealthy people getting more money. All of this was based on socialist principles of allowing the government to control the mechanisms of our economy, which has overwhelmingly, the more power we've given the government, benefited the very corporations that you complain about even more. That's what happened. Had those actions not been taken, we would have a more robust middle class, which would then been able to outcompete when you take them all in effect, these massive corporations to buy things like home ownership. That's why we see home ownership, because of the policies that no doubt you fucking miserable fucking socialist agreed with. You know, more government policies, more government programs, more government printing of money and shit like that. Now we see home ownership is becoming more and more of a pie in the sky dream for more Americans every day. And so is their solution ever, geez, maybe we shouldn't have given these corrupt government people this much power. Look how it's just further enriching the rich and screwing over the poor and working class. Is that ever their solution? No. Their solution, as you can see from OMG Sticks here, is always going to be, you know what we need? More government control. That's the problem. The problem was we let people have too much control over their own money. We need more government regulation, more government control, until ultimately, and I've had this debate with socialists over and over, ultimately when it gets down to brass tacks, they really do mean it, that they want the government to control the means of production. The same government that they say is corrupt, they think if they totally had the means of production, all of a sudden they wouldn't be corrupt, they wouldn't pick winners and losers, they would apply judiciously to every person in this country, right? The same government that wanted you locked down but thought it was fine for Black Lives Matter to go protest and shit like that. The same government that'll lock up right-wingers and people that protest at the Capitol but will be fine with people that are protesting for Palestinians to do this. That same government, if we just gave them all of the means of production, surely they wouldn't use it to screw over people that they disagree with. That's what the socialist believes. We had more of a socialist experiment in the past 3 years in this country than we had in a very long time in this country. We gave the government near complete control when it came to policies about how humans could travel, who could go to work. And then we allowed the government to massively redistribute wealth in the form of basically doubling our supply of money. How'd that work? Poor and working class people doing better now? Looking good? Oh, wait, it's way worse for them. So what's the solution? Well, we need more money printing, more government control. That's the problem. So, enjoyed the stream today. It was sort of a stream of conscious stream. Let's play that bad. This video, I'm sure, will be demonetized or something. Because I couldn't help but think, right? Like, when I used to hear the song Seven Nation Army, all I could think about was, like, that old Chappelle Show clip. For the nations, yeah. It's like, it feels like we're going back into the Iraq War, right? That's what it feels like to me. Oh, I gotta get my headphones on right here. Oh, man. It was a great stream today. I should be streaming again Monday, hopefully. Who knows? Fuck the GOP. Fuck the establishment people. Fuck the idea that we need to sacrifice more. I'm sick and tired of a country that doesn't give a fuck about the poor and working class in this country. I'm tired of people not giving a shit about rural America. I'm tired of my fucking neighbors' constituents, Mike Kelly, being a fucking shill rhino asshole that's only out there looking out for himself. I'm tired of them giving a fuck more about Ukraine than they are about people that are overdosing in this country, in our very neighborhoods. I'm fucking over it. I'm tired of all these assholes. They fucking suck. If you're waiting for some hero to come around and run for some office and solve all these problems, you got another thing fucking coming. So, but enjoy your personal life, laugh at it, have some gallows humor, make fun of the fact that these people that cheered on this cultural Marxist bullshit are now afraid that the monster will turn on them. Fuck them all. Fuck the socialists. Fuck the cultural Marxists. They're all sacks of shit. But I hope you had a good time with the show. One more shout out to my guinea pig Elvira that passed away. I'll miss you, Elvira. Talk to y'all soon.